And you're probably wondering to yourself, man, Mo, which one do I go to? Which is the right bike for me? How are you liking the Fezzari La Sal Peak? Do you regret building another one up? Why did you build another one up? What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Mo Awesome here, and I do want to talk about the Fezzari La Sal Peak today. That's the bike that both my girlfriend Hannah and I have been riding for the last few months. Absolutely in love with this bike, and I feel like it's finally time to do a long-term review. As you guys know, if you have been following the channel, my girlfriend Hannah and I ride for Fezzari bicycles, and we've been working with them for about a little over a year now. Originally, we were on the Fezzari Delano Peak, a 135mm trail bike, and then we stepped up to the Fezzari La Sal Peak, a 170mm enduro bike, and this thing is absolutely insane. So insane, in fact, that I actually went ahead and already built up a new one. If you follow us on Instagram, you probably saw a ridiculous color scheme I came up with for my new Fezzari La Sal Peak, and it's very rare for me to be so stoked on a bike that I have to get one custom painted, and that happened with the Fezzari La Sal Peak, and I can truly say this is one of my favorite bikes of all time. I'll talk about why later on and compare it to some other bikes I have ridden in the past. Everything I talk about, including the actual bike, so if you do want to check out the La Sal Peak, we'll put links to all of that stuff in the description of this video, so definitely check out those links. Now, before we get into the review, we just want to take a quick second and shout out today's video sponsor, and that is Huel. Now, if you haven't been following us on Instagram, you don't know that for the last 2 months or so, Hannah and I have actually been living in Asia. Now, if you're not familiar with Huel, they actually make 100% nutritionally complete meals. They're plant-based and they are awesome. They actually were a lifesaver when we were in Japan. No one told us how expensive Japan was going to be and also how few vegan options we were going to find. Huel came to the rescue when we were there. They actually sent over a few of their hot and savory meals. 2 scoops of this along with some hot water is going to get you a 400-calorie meal with 24 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals. It's plant-based, and most importantly, it actually tastes amazing. My personal favorite flavor in the hot and savory is actually the mac and cheese. The reason I love this flavor is because it actually does taste like homemade mac and cheese, and you don't have to top it off with any spice or anything because it already has natural spices. And there's no artificial sweeteners, no palm oil. It's also non-GMO, and it's also made with whole foods as well, so it's definitely been keeping us going on all of our cycling adventures out here. Something I think Huel would be actually amazing for is actually going to be bike packing food. So we have some bike packing trips in the future. We're definitely going to be bringing some Huel along with us. Once again, you guys, 400 calories in 2 scoops, or if you want 200 calories in 1 scoop, you can also go with that, or 600 calories in 3 scoops. Fully customizable, all of the spices there, whole food ingredients, plant-based, very healthy. If you guys want to check out Huel and all the flavors they have in the hot and savories, we're going to leave our link in the description of this video. Huge thank you to Huel for helping support the channel. Once again, you guys, these guys have been amazing, and the food actually tastes amazing, so we can't recommend Huel enough. Once again, that link is in the description of this video. Now let's get back into the review. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is my actual build, because we get a lot of questions on that. I'm actually running an XL frame. I'm about 6'2", and I will say this thing fits me like a glove. Love the sizing on this thing. My girlfriend Hannah is 5'8", and she runs a size medium. She loves that thing. Sometimes with certain long travel enduro bikes, you can kind of feel like you're in between sizing. Doesn't feel like that at 6'2". I feel like I'm very proper on the XL. Now, I went with a DVO Onyx up front because I wanted a little bit of a stiffer, beefier fork. Love that Onyx from DVO, and I paired it with a DVO Topaz on the rear. It's their new version of the Topaz, and this thing feels like a coil shock and an air shock had a baby. Absolutely in love with the Topaz. Going with the drivetrain, I'm running SRAM AXS, and I have been running AXS on essentially all of my bikes for the last few years. Absolutely brutalize this thing on rocks. I've bashed it so many times, and I've dropped my bike drive side down so many times as well, and this thing has had no issues whatsoever. I do have the new AXS transmission for my new build. For the brakes, I'm running my favorite brakes. They're the SRAM Code RSCs. I feel like the stopping power is insane on these things. In terms of the cockpit, I'm running the 1UP carbon handlebars. These have been some of my favorite handlebars I've been running for the last few years. They have a little bit of flex built into them, which helps out a ton, and I have them paired with 1UP grips. Love the 1UP grips. I feel like they're slept on. So much traction in there, and it works really well for gloveless riders like myself. I hate gloves. I'm also running an Industry 9 A35 stem just for the bling factor, made in the USA. So yeah, shout out to Industry 9. I'm also running Crank Brothers Synthesis Enduro carbon wheels. We've been working with Crank Brothers for a little over a year now. These wheels are insane. They have a different spoke count in front, so they have the 28 hole up front and a 32 in the rear, so you get a little bit more flex up front. front and a stiffer wheel in the rear. I have Minion DHF up front, and in the rear I have a Minion DHF as well. I would like to also point out the new Crank Brothers Trail Candy pedals. So yes, I do have the clipless pedals on here. I have been actually experimenting running clipped in on this bike. I go back and forth between these and the Stam 7 Large, which is the flat pedals. And you guys know me, I love flat pedals. But for whatever reason, I wanted to try the clipless over the last few weeks, and I have actually been digging it. I do have my favorite woman saddle because I love women's saddles. It's a Specialized Mimic on here, and yeah, super awesome saddle. Can't recommend this thing enough. And all throughout the bike, I have oil slick titanium bolts. They're made by Better Bolts. Shout out to those guys because yeah, it really makes my bike look super blinged out. And yeah, that's my Fezzari La Sal Peak. So talking about how this bike rides, let's start off with climbing. When you first look at this bike on paper, I feel like it's so much different from how this thing performs out on the trail. The first time I got on this bike and started pedaling it around, I was blown away by how well it pedaled. Number one, I feel like a lot of this is attributed to the seat angle. The seat angle is nice and steep, which is perfect for me because number one, I have long legs and I have a really high saddle height, and I feel like seat angles themselves do get exaggerated for taller riders because it just kind of puts you even further back if you do have a slack seat angle. The steep seat angle setup on this makes climbing super steep vertical climbs out here in Laguna Beach and a few other places we've been. All that stuff super easy because it feels like you're on top of that bottom bracket and all of the power you're putting down is actually being translated to forward momentum. So yeah, super stoked on the pedaling position of this thing. And it also has a very surprising accelerating feel from this bike. You get on the trails, the first thing besides the geometry that you notice is it doesn't feel like a 170mm travel bike when you're pedaling around. You're not getting this crazy bop from it. You can get out of the saddle and still put the power down without feeling like it's just you're riding a DH rig. I would say it's more in line with the trail bike in terms of its pedaling characteristics. I will say on more fire road style climbs, I do find myself reaching for the lockout. You can definitely feel a difference from the Delano Peak. However, I am constantly impressed with how efficient this thing climbs. Now, when you take it on something that's a little bit more technical, so say you take it on like a rockier style climb, that's where this bike truly does shine. You definitely tend to feel the traction of this bike up more technical style climbs. Is its strong suit. This thing can climb for days, and as long as you're willing to put that power down and suffer, this thing will stay hooked up to the ground and get you up climbs that blow me away. I always find myself being like, okay, when is this bike gonna give? And normally it's the rider that gives before the bike, which is very impressive of a bike of this caliber. Like I said, 170mm travel bike should not climb this well. And yeah, definitely impressed with how this thing performs on the climbing as well as the pedaling. Do I feel like the Delano had a better acceleration? Yes, I would say right off of the gas, if you were just kind of put full power down, I do feel like you get off to a quicker start on the Delano Peak. However, on just a long fire road climb in general, I would say between the Delano and this, not too much of a difference except for weight, because I do have this built up a little bit beefier than I do my Delano, so that's another thing to kind of keep in consideration. But yeah, this thing is a very impressive climber. Now, in terms of the downhill, I have been blown away by how much I love this bike downhill. So when you think 170mm enduro rig, a lot of people think mini DH bike that you can still pedal around. That's not what this is. I would say this is a more souped up trail all mountain rig. You definitely get that 170mm aggressiveness, especially on more downhill style trails. The steeper you go, the chunkier it goes. You definitely feel like, oh wow, like this thing is in control. And the 170mm of travel paired with that DVO Onyx, that stiff fork, that's when you truly feel like this thing can be a monster truck, but it's not overbearing. It doesn't feel like it's just super squishy and like you're riding a downhill rig on trail style trails. It has just the right amount of downhill tenacity paired with this kind of subtle trail bike kind of style feel in the back. I feel like I'm describing like a coffee note when I'm talking about this bike, but essentially what I'm trying to say is it doesn't feel like it's in the downhill bike side of the spectrum in terms of where trail or enduro bikes lie. It feels a little bit more centered, kind of close to the trail, but not in that trail category, where I feel like some companies tend to go a little bit more aggressive with their long travel 29ers. And yeah, super stoked that that's not that, because I feel like when you get to most trails, especially the steeper, more aggressive one, yeah, you want something that's going to be able to handle its own, which this does. However, when stuff starts to get like super tight and twisty and you really want control, that's where I feel like a lot of those more downhill bike style long travel 29ers fail at. is then it just kind of starts to get sloppy. And I still feel like I have that control on more free ride style downhill tracks. However, I'm also feel super safe on this thing. The other thing I want to talk about this Geo is I feel like Fezzari really nailed it with not going too crazy with the numbers. For an XL, I don't feel like the reach is just all the way in front of me. I can fit like another rider on my top tube. But at the same time, I also feel like it's very progressive and it feels very well suited for this bike and what it's intended to do, and also the current climate of bikes, because I feel like a lot of people out there are looking for that one bike that's gonna do a lot. It's gonna take them to Whistler Bike Park, but at the same time, they're gonna be able to ride their local trails, and I feel like this is a strong contender in that category. So the downhill, definitely blown away time and time again on this. So now let's get into who this bike is for. You're probably watching this video and you've probably been eyeing this bike, and maybe you've been looking at the Fezzari Delano, maybe you've been looking at a bike that I previously used to ride, the Ibis Ritmo, or any number of bikes on the market as well. And you're probably wondering to yourself, man, Mo, which one do I go to? Which is the right bike for me? How are you liking the Fezzari La Sal Peak? Do you regret building another one up? Why did you build another one up? So for me personally, I feel like the person that's really gonna benefit from the Fezzari La Sal Peak is that rider that's really looking for a one bike quiver. However, they have a more aggressive style of what fun is. So yes, they like climbing. They still want to be able to kind of put those big mile days in. However, they want to do that big climb and then they want to find like the most nasty trail on that mountain. However, they want their bike to do well at both. They don't want to slog up to get up to that downhill track, and at the same time, they don't want to have to tiptoe their way down that trail. And I feel like that's where this bike truly does shine. And that is what I feel like describes me as a rider. I'm definitely that type of rider that I love climbing and I love really aggressive downhills. And that combination of being able to do both is why I became so in love with the Fezzari La Sal Peak. If you're that rider that maybe you prioritize climbing just a little bit more than you do downhills, you're definitely in that category, then I would probably look at something like the Fezzari Delano Peak. That's that trail bike offering that we were riding earlier on. Or I would also even say that Ibis Ritmo that I was on a little while ago. I would say that's a little bit more in that kind of aggressive trail bike category, but not into that long travel 29er. All right, really quickly looking at their website, I do want to show you guys the La Sal Peak because they actually just released 2 new colors while we were shooting this video. So if you look, this purple's mine, this is Hannah's, and then they just released this yellow. This is actually a matte finish, kind of yellow desert tan color that I actually really like. I think this thing looks awesome. And they also released this two-tone one that looks super cool as well. And another thing I do want to show you guys is if you guys go to build now and you guys go to the builds that they have an insane sale right now. So about $2,000 off on the SRAM GX AXS build. They have some other awesome build options as well. And then as always, they have the lifetime warranty and then the 30-day trial. I feel like not enough people know about this. 30 days, if it's the wrong size or if it's not the right bike for you, you do have that 30-day trial on there. And another thing I do want to point out is, so click on this build right here, this build specs, you can kind of see the builds, the components that it comes with. However, all these parts on this bike, they'll actually work with you as well if you do want to swap anything out. So say like this crank I wanted to upgrade, or say maybe a rear cassette I want to upgrade, or maybe I want to swap out the brakes. They'll actually work with you to get you the exact bike that is your dream, which is another option I feel like not too many people know about Fezzari. And yeah, something that I want to bring up to you guys real quick. Everything I was looking for a bike, this thing checks. Overall, not many other things I would change to this build. Absolutely in love with this thing from Fezzari. We'll put a link to this bike in the description like I said, and if you guys have any other questions or comments or anything, let us know in the comment section. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to not miss out on any future adventures. Hopefully you found this video useful, and with that being said, until next time, you guys, ride awesome. You.